Welcome back, night travelers, to Nakora Nights. Tonight, we're not just telling stories. We're taking a road trip through America's most haunted mountains, the Appalachians. Hundreds of miles of twisting roads, no streetlights, no signal, and sometimes no way back. These aren't just ghost stories. They're real encounters from people who swore they'd never drive those roads again. A couple chased by headlights that vanished into thin air, a trucker who picked up a hitchhiker that disappeared mid-sentence, and a family who followed GPS straight into something not human. And tonight, you're in the passenger seat. Every turn, every sound, every shadow, you'll feel it. So before we roll, buckle up, like this video, subscribe, and comment below. I'm brave enough to take the drives if you dare to ride through the darkness till the very end. Now turn off your lights and listen closely, because out here on these roads, the mountains listen back. I grew up in a railroad town in North Carolina. My father worked night shifts at the yard, and I used to wait up for him on the porch, listening to the whistle echo through the valleys. I knew the sound of engines, the way tracks curve, the feel of waiting in the dark. I wanted to be a journalist since I was 12, someone who could look at the odd cracks in the world and write them down. That's what I do now. And that's why, even though my hands shake while I tell this, I can't keep it buried. It was supposed to be simple. Just a weekend drive from Augusta, Georgia, up to Dayton, Ohio. 3 of us crammed into my beat-up Honda Accord, my cousin Reza, our friend Tommy, and me. We planned to leave Thursday night, drive through the dark, and roll in by morning. No hotel costs, no wasted daylight. We were broke college kids, fueled by vending machine candy and caffeine, convinced we were invincible. The first hours were fine. Road trip energy, loud voices, dumb jokes, chips and soda spilling across the floor mats. The car smelled like burnt popcorn and body spray. We rolled out of Atlanta, through northern Georgia, into Kentucky. For a while it felt like any other night drive. Headlights stretching ahead, music too loud, highway signs blinking past. But south of Louisville, traffic slammed to a standstill. Cones. Machines. Brake lights as far as we could see. My patience cracked. I pulled off at the next exit, figuring a back road was better than waiting 3 hours. Reza pulled up directions on his phone. He found a thin highway cutting northeast through towns we'd never heard of. It looked peaceful, easy. We didn't know then that sometimes roads take you instead of lead you. At first it was nice. 2 narrow lanes, hardly any cars. Fields stretched out silver under the moon. A farmhouse here, a mailbox there. It had that midnight magic, quiet, open, timeless. We passed snacks, argued about which playlist was cursed, and laughed too loud. By midnight, the mood shifted. We'd been on the same road for over an hour, but the signs didn't make sense. One said Denton, 12 miles. 15 minutes later, another, Denton, 12 miles. We thought maybe the car felt slow. I checked the speedometer, steady at 60. We weren't crawling. Still, no town came, only more woods. That's when the radio glitched, static whispers between songs. A verse looping, like someone dragged the needle back. One song stuttered for 30 full seconds on the same line before snapping forward. Then another played at half speed, voices drooping like melted tape. Tommy laughed nervously and called it the Kentucky Twilight Zone. None of us joined him. Around 2, we saw neon lights ahead. A diner. Chrome siding, glass windows, a big glowing eat sign flickering red, white, red. It looked pulled straight from the 1950s, sitting alone in a gravel lot surrounded by trees. Relief flooded us. We were tired, hungry, on edge, so we pulled in. 5 or 6 cars sat outside, but they weren't right. Their paint was faded, chrome dull, moss crawling under wipers. One had leaves jammed in its window seams, another flat tires that looked fossilized. They weren't abandoned, they looked stuck, like insects in amber. Inside was worse. Lights hummed. Booths were neat, menus on every table. Coffee cups half full at the counter. The ceiling fans turned lazily. Everything alive except there were no people. Not a server, not a cook, not a single customer. Reza pointed at the clock behind the register. Midnight exactly. The hands didn't move. The second hand stayed vertical, frozen. We stared at it for minutes. No tick, no change. The air pressed heavy, like time had stopped breathing. None of us spoke. We walked out together, slid back into the car, and didn't say a word until headlights swept the road again. Tommy whispered, "What the hell was that?" But no one answered. The farther we drove, the more the road played tricks. A billboard appeared, peeling paint, rust spreading across the frame, advertising Sunrise Tobacco. Someone had spray painted "Turn Back" in red across the corner. We laughed it off. 5 minutes later, the same billboard appeared. Not a copy, the same one. Same peeling paint. Same spray paint slant. 10 minutes later, again. This time we stayed silent. Then came the barn. Collapsed roof, wooden siding shredded, like claws had dragged down it. A bent weather vane spun weakly. We passed it once. Then again, then a third time. No one said déjà vu. It wasn't déjà vu. It was a loop that wanted us trapped. We finally stopped at a crossroads, desperate. The signs pointed toward places we'd never heard of: Carver's Hill, Milford, Hollow Ridge. None matched the maps. On paper, the road didn't exist. On GPS, we were just a floating blue dot in empty gray. While we argued about whether to turn left or backtrack, something moved on the far edge of the road. At first, it looked like a person. Tall, too tall. Clothes shredded, strips dangling like soaked rags. The head tilted sideways far too far, like the neck had broken and kept holding. I don't remember deciding. My hand flipped the headlights on. The figure vanished. Instantly, no sound. No scatter of leaves, just gone. I slammed the gas. We shot forward without a word. Time bent after that. The dashboard clock said 10 minutes had passed, but we'd listened to nearly a whole CD. When we checked, the display said we were still on track 3. Phones matched the car clock. Time slid under us, wrong, slippery, refusing to line up. Reza muttered a prayer. Tommy chewed his lip until it bled. I just kept driving. Hours, or maybe no time at all, later, lights glowed ahead. A gas station. Real pumps, real trucks. A man smoking by the door, people moving inside. The moment we rolled in, the air changed, solid again. Noise returned. Birds, diesel, footsteps. I asked the clerk how far we were from Lexington. He frowned. 20 minutes. Straight shot. We had been on that back road for 6 hours. 6 hours that should have been maybe 40 miles. We filled the tank and didn't talk. Not one of us suggested leaving the interstate again. Not for the rest of the trip. Not ever. That should have been the end, but horror doesn't tie itself neatly. The next morning, I walked out of our motel and froze. Muddy footprints led from the tree line straight to our car door and then back again. Fresh. No rain that night. The prints circled my driver's side like someone had stood there, leaning in. When we got inside, something sat on the dashboard. A cassette tape, cracked label reading, "For you." None of us owned a tape deck, but the Accord had one. Against everything my gut screamed, we slid it in. Static hissed, then voices. Our voices. Last night's conversation. Word for word, from when we first joked about the Twilight Zone, someone had been listening, someone had been recording. We ejected it, left it in a gas station trash can, and didn't speak of it again. But the strangest part came later. Back in Georgia, I started asking locals about the area. Old men at diners. Women at grocery counters. They all said the same thing. That's the road that moves. I'd ask where it was and they'd point toward the hills. But when I pulled up my maps, the app froze. The line work dissolved into blank gray. Like the road had shifted away, hiding until it wanted you again. I'm a journalist. I chase facts. I write what can be verified. But this doesn't fit into proof. All I have are footprints, a tape I should never have played, and hours that vanish like smoke. Maybe you think it's just a story. Maybe you think we were tired kids seeing patterns and shadows. Believe what you want. But if you ever drive northern Kentucky back roads and see a glowing diner at 2 in the morning, keep driving. Don't stop. Don't listen. And whatever you do, don't check the dashboard. Because sometimes the road doesn't take you where you want to go. Sometimes the road takes you. The thunder started before the rain. It rolled down the mountains like a drumbeat, long and deep, shaking the air and rattling my chest. I waited for lightning to split the sky, but it never came. The clouds stayed black, heavy as stone. No flash. No white crack across the night. Instead, something else lit the woods. A red glow, faint at first, pulsed from between the trees. Not like fire. Not like brake lights. It flickered slow and steady, like the forest itself was breathing. Red, dark, dark. Red, dark, dark. I gripped the steering wheel tighter. My car headlights swept around a bend, and that's when I saw the sign. Old wood, faded paint, one side leaning down into weeds. The letters were still clear, welcome back. My stomach flipped. I whispered into the empty car, I've never been here before. But the words didn't sound true, even to me. I'd started this trip for peace, that's all. A quiet drive through the Appalachian mountains, a weekend away from the office and the city's endless noise. I wanted to breathe, to think, maybe to sit in a small town diner with hot pie and bad coffee. The highway had been wide and easy at first. Gas stations every few miles, trucks rolling along. Then I'd taken an older road, narrow and winding, hugging the curves of the mountains. That's when it started feeling lonely. The woods pressed close on both sides. The air cooled. My radio crackled with static. My phone dropped to no signal. The first drops of rain hit the windshield soft and fast. Then came the downpour. The world turned gray and smeared. My wipers squeaked. My headlights cut short tunnels through the storm. The thunder kept rolling, but the lightning never came, not once. And that red glow in the trees always there, just far enough to stay hidden, always flickering with me as I drove. The smell reached me next. At first, I thought it was wet wood smoke, but it wasn't sharp or sweet. It was sour, bitter. My chest tightened when I recognized it, burning hair. If you've ever lit hair by accident on a candle or stove, you know it. That awful, choking smell. This was that smell, but heavier, thicker. It slipped into the car even with the window shut. I pressed the button to roll them tighter anyway. No difference. Every mile it grew stronger, like the storm itself carried it straight to me. I leaned forward over the wheel, trying to see better through the blur of water. My shoulders ached from being so tense. That's when I checked the rearview mirror. Way back in the rain, I saw two red dots, steady, level. They looked like eyes, far behind, following me. Not headlights, not taillights, not taillights. Just two red points glowing in the storm. I pressed the gas harder. The dots stayed the same distance away. I slowed down. They stayed. They were locked to me, patient. No, I muttered, shaking my head. But the dots didn't care. The road curved tight around the mountain. The red glow swelled stronger through the trees. The smell of burning hair was thick now, making my throat sting. I wanted to turn around, but the road was too narrow. I told myself, just a few more miles, just get down the other side. Then I rounded the bend and slammed my foot on the brake. Someone was standing in the middle of the road. My car fishtailed. My hands burned on the wheel as I fought it straight. The figure didn't move. The rain poured down my windshield. I stopped just yards away, heart hammering. I flipped on my high beams. Rain slashed white in the light. The figure lifted its head, and I saw my own face. Not just similar, not just close. My exact face. Same eyes, same jaw, same hair plastered wet to the forehead. But the skin was gray, washed out. The eyes were too calm. The mouth was too still, like it belonged to someone who had been waiting a very long time. I froze. My tongue stuck in my mouth. The smell of burning hair poured into me so strong I gagged. The other me raised its hand, slowly, steady, and pointed toward the forest, toward the red glow that pulsed like a giant heart in the trees. "No," I whispered. My voice was smaller than the rain. Thunder rolled again, and for just a second, the red glow brightened, washing the trees in bloody light. That's when I saw them. Dozens of faces in the forest. Still, watching. All of them mine. The glow dimmed, and the faces melted back into shadow. But I knew what I'd seen. My hands trembled on the wheel. The other me stepped back, out of the headlights, waiting at the edge of the trees. Patient. Certain. I don't know why I did it. My hand moved to the door. The lock clicked. The storm burst in. Cold rain. And under it, waves of hot air that smelled like scorched hair and ashes. My skin prickled, like the forest had a fever. I stepped out. The other me turned and walked into the woods. No rush, no fear. Just a slow stride, certain I'd follow. And I did. The branches slapped my arms. The ground sucked at my shoes. The glow pulsed brighter ahead, painting trunks and leaves with its heavy red. My scalp tingled like every hair wanted to stand on end and burn. The smell was unbearable now. I gagged, covered my nose, but it didn't matter. It was inside me. We came to a hollow in the earth. A circle of black stones sat at the center, wet with rain. Steam curled off them in thin threads. The red glow bled out of the stones, rising and falling like a slow breath. Shapes stood around the circle. I blinked hard, trying to focus. They weren't shadows. They were people. No, they were me. Different versions. One with tired lines around the eyes. One with younger cheeks. One with freckles. One with a scar I didn't have. Dozens of me, staring with quiet patience. My chest locked up. I couldn't run. I couldn't scream. The other me, the one who led me here, stepped into the circle and turned to face me. Rain slid down its still face. When it spoke, the voice was mine, but rounder, as if the mountains themselves shaped it. "You are here," it said. "You left." "I don't remember," I whispered. "You do now." The thunder rolled low, like a voice agreeing, and suddenly I did remember, just enough. Flashes. Another storm, another car, another night where I had walked away from something I couldn't face. I had left it here in the mountains like trash. The mountains don't forget. The other me lifted its hand again, pointing back toward the road. Through the trees, I saw faint white beams. Another car, far down the curve, moving toward us slow. "If you don't finish," the other me said, "the road calls another." The circle of stones glowed hotter. The smell grew sharp and bitter, making my scalp sting. My heart hammered. My throat shook. "What do I do?" "Finish," it said. I stepped to the stones. Heat rolled off them in waves, crawling over my skin, slipping under it. My chest ached. My heart pounded harder. "What do I give?" I asked. The other me touched its chest. "What you brought every time. What you left behind." I knew. It wasn't something in my hands. It was something in me. The weight I carried. The pain I buried. The grief I never let myself feel. All the nights I had driven away from what I couldn't face. All the times I said I was fine when I wasn't. All the shame. The mountains don't keep it for free. They remember. They call you back. "Will it hurt?" I asked. "Yes," it said. "Then it won't." I stepped into the circle. Heat wrapped me like a second skin. My knees buckled. Tears burst from my eyes before I knew I was crying. My heart twisted, and I felt something inside me come loose, like a knot I had tied years ago finally sliding free. The smell of burning hair filled my nose. My scalp prickled and burned. I sobbed once, hard, ugly, and then I felt lighter. The red glow pulsed bright, so bright it washed everything red. Then it faded. The stones hissed with rain. The smell thinned, softer now, like the end of a candle wick. The other me stepped forward, placed a cool hand on my shoulder and said, "You finished," and then it was gone. The other faces blurred and slipped away into the trees. The forest sighed, empty again. I stood alone, shaking, breathing, lighter than I had in years. When I stepped back onto the road, my car was gone. just wet blacktop under the rain. I didn't panic. Somehow, it felt right. Far down the curve, new headlights crept toward me, another driver, careful and alone, heading into the storm. I stepped into the beam of their lights, raised my hand. My voice came steady. "Welcome back." The car stopped. A window slid down. A shaky voice asked, "What did you say?" I smiled, just a little, and repeated, "Welcome back. Don't be afraid. It's only old pain burning off. Finish, and you'll be free." The driver stared at me, pale in the glow. Then their engine cut off. Their door opened. They stepped into the rain. I didn't follow. The forest would take them. The mountains would help them finish. I stood by the road, breathing. For the first time in years, my chest felt open, light. If you've ever smelled that strange, bitter smoke in the rain or felt the road itself calling you, don't be afraid. Some journeys bring us back to finish what we left undone. If you understand this story, leave one word in the comments: return, so the next traveler knows they aren't alone. I was not scared of the road. I should have been. My name is Nate Wilder. I tell stories for a small podcast. I collect old road tales, songs from diners, whispers from front porches. My grandpa taught me to listen. He fixed radios and said, "Some places remember more than people." I thought that was cute. Then one night the road remembered me back. We left Fort Wayne after dinner, aiming for Greenville by morning. There were 4 of us. Me, Mira with the paper maps, Jay who liked to drive fast, and Lila who brought snacks and bad jokes. We wanted to save money. No hotel, just coffee and shifts. The app showed a shortcut through the edges of the Appalachians. "We'll shave 2 hours," Jay said. We all agreed. It sounded easy. It felt brave. It was neither. The night was big and empty. The trees grew tight around the road. No houses, no billboards, no lights. Our headlights cut a pale tunnel, and that tunnel was our whole world. We did not talk much. Sometimes you don't need to. The hum of the tires is like a slow song that tells you everything will be fine. Our fuel light blinked close to midnight. We turned into a lonely station called Pine Well Fuel. One pump worked. The sign buzzed like a trapped fly. The building looked tired. I went inside for water. The clerk did not look up. Dust lay on the magazines like gray fur. I paid cash and walked back out. Jay slid the pump handle into place. It slipped. I reached to steady it. My fingers touched something wet. I pulled my hand back and stared. It was sticky, red, and warm. Warm like skin, not like gas, not like night air. "Did you spill?" I asked. Stupid words, small voice. Jay shook his head. He looked like he wanted to say gas too, but he could not lie to his nose or his hands. Lila ran for napkins. The door chimed. No one came out. We wiped. It smeared darker. It stayed warm, as if it had just left a body. We did not speak. We got in the car and left. The music stayed off. The road hummed louder. At 1:06 a.m., we passed a broken RV on the shoulder. White. Rust around the windows. A flower sticker half peeled on the back. Inside, nothing moved. It looked empty, like a shell. At 1:22 a.m., we passed the same RV again. We had not turned. The GPS said we were going straight. This time, shadows drifted behind the curtains. Slow, like people in a hallway. When I looked straight at the window, I saw only darkness. When I looked a little away, the shadows returned. I felt sick. We drove on. At 1:49 a.m., we passed it a third time. Now the lights were on, bright and clean. The door was shut. No footsteps, no voices. Just that long white box shining on the trees, like a stage waiting for actors. "Say it," Lila whispered. "Say we're not looping." No one said it. We were not lost. We were held. Near a place the map called Copper Bend, I saw him. He stood a few feet back from the road, behind a sagging fence, just above a ditch. He wore a loose, collarless shirt, dark suspenders, and muddy brown shoes. His arms hung at his sides like he had forgotten he had them. He did not wave. He did not turn. He faced a dead field and listened. I watched him as we passed. He did not blink. He did not care about our headlights. It felt like we belonged to the road, and he belonged to the part of the road that listens. I said nothing. Tired eyes make tricks. That is what I told myself. Still, my fingers would not open from the door handle. At 3:03 a.m., we rolled into a small rest stop, 2 bathrooms, 1 soda machine, a single light that flickered like a tired heart. The lot was empty, the woods were not. I went in and splashed water on my face. The bleach smell burned my nose. A crack ran across the mirror like a frozen bolt of lightning. I breathed in. I breathed out. I told myself a small story, the way my grandpa taught me, to keep the dark from talking first. I stepped back outside, and the dark spoke anyway. He stood at the edge of the lot, right where the light ended and the trees began. Same clothes, same stillness. His head tipped a little. He was listening. I did not call for Jay. I did not want to teach the night my voice. I walked to the car. I opened the door. "Drive," I said. Jay did not ask why. He turned the key. We pulled away. We reached the on-ramp. A child's voice came from the trees. Soft, sweet. "Close. Help me," it said. We all heard it. Lila's hand went to the window switch. "No," I said. "Keep them up." "It might be a kid," Mira said. "It knows that," Jay whispered, and I knew he was right, and I did not ask him how he knew. The voice stayed with us as we rolled onto the highway. When we slowed for a curve, it sounded right beside my door. When we sped up, it rode the wind behind us. "Help me," it said again. Then it hummed a little tune. Gentle. The kind of tune a mother hums when the power is out and the candles are short. I put my hands under my thighs so I would not open the door. We stopped talking. The rules found us one by one. Do not answer first. Do not touch what is warm if it should be cold. Do not trust the third repeat. Do not stop for a voice that learns your name. Do not look too long in mirrors. At 3:41 a.m., Jay hit the brakes hard. The tires cried out. "Someone crossed," he said. In the white beam, I saw a shape leave the shoulder and slip into the trees. It did not run. It moved like time when you watch a clock. It had the same wrong stillness even while it moved. I could hear my own breath. It sounded too loud. I tried to breathe like a person and not like prey. We found a small town at last, a place with one main street and a diner called Bluefinch. The sun was low but up. Daylight should have felt safe. It did not. 2 old men sat by the window, holding coffee cups with both hands. Their eyes did not move. The chairs were all different colors. A sign on the wall said "cash only" in a shaky hand. We ordered pancakes and bacon. The plates were warm. The food tasted like waking up. My hands shook around the mug. "You okay?" Mira asked. I nodded. I was not. I went to the bathroom. The hall was narrow and yellow. The door creaked. I washed my hands. I let the water run longer than I needed. I did not want to look up. When I did, I saw him in the mirror. Not a blur, not a trick. He stood in the doorway behind me. Same shirt, same suspenders, same ruined shoes. He did not reach for me. He only tilted his head like he knew my breath was a song and he was trying to catch the tune. I turned around. The doorway was empty. The sink dripped. I turned the water off. I walked back to the table. I ate. I said nothing. We paid in cash. We left. The old men never looked at us. We joined a bigger highway. The world widened. The lines were clean. The sun climbed. "Real gas next stop," Jay said. He sounded like himself again. We pulled into a bright travel plaza with people and noise and sweet bread smells. The pump handle was cold and dry. I laughed once, too loud, like a hiccup. Inside, the clerk smiled and talked about weather. For a second, I believed the night was just night again. Then a child's voice called from behind the dumpsters. "Help me," it said, very soft, very close. A family walked past with a dog, and nobody turned. Maybe the voice was not for them. Maybe the road chooses who can hear. It found us anyway, Lila said. We left. The voice did not follow this time, but when Jay started the car, the radio played that same lullaby on its own. We turned it off. The silence felt kinder. We saw a small hill with a white church and pulled in because it felt right to do it. On the board by the door, under the Sunday hymn numbers, someone had written in a shaky hand, "Do not bring him in." We did not go inside. We did not talk about the words. We stood in the warm light and listened to the wind move the grass. It sounded like 1,000 small decisions being made at once. We went back to the car. We kept going. Near the state line, the road narrowed and bent. A wooden gate stood by a field. A board nailed across it said, "No passage." As we rolled by, the letters slid for me and only for me. For a blink it read, "No passenger." Then it was normal again. I did not tell the others. Some things grow teeth when you share them. I felt chosen, and not in a good way. The road liked that I listened. It wanted my attention more than anything. A mile later, a small shape stepped from the ditch. A child, or something wearing a childlike a shirt. Bare feet, black with dust. A dirty t-shirt. Head down, still. Jay slowed. "Don't stop," I said. My voice shook. "Please." The shape raised its face. The eyes were wrong, not evil. Empty. It opened its mouth. The same sweet voice came out. The same gentle tune hummed at the end. It took one step toward my door. I stared at the yellow line and counted my breaths. Jay did not stop. The thing stepped back. It watched us pass. It did not chase. It did not need to. The road would see us again if we let it. We reached Greenville before noon. People walked dogs. A busker played guitar. A kid on a scooter laughed and almost fell and laughed again. We parked. No one said. We made it. We sat in the car with the engine off and listened to the tick-tick of a hot machine cooling down. Lila cried once, then laughed at herself. Mira called her mom and said we were fine. Jay checked the tires like salvation was made of rubber. I went to a cafe bathroom and did not look up. I washed my hands. I hummed a different tune, my own tune. I walked out into the sun. Do I think he was real? I think the road has listened to too many last words, and those words needed a shape. I think he is that shape. He does not chase, he waits. He tilts his head. He learns your voice through the voices you care about. He does not want your scream, he wants your attention. 2 weeks later, a postcard came. No return address. A fence, a field. A thin figure in the shadow with his head tipped, as if he had been listening before the camera arrived. On the back, in a neat hand, "Tell it right, Nate." Nobody outside the car knew my name. I put the card in a drawer. When I open it, I hum my own song, not his. Sometimes I still drive at night. I keep one ear free for the wind. If I hear "help me" from the trees, I do not answer. I do not stomp. I do not touch what should be cold if it feels warm. If I pass the same thing 3 times, I start to talk about dumb jokes and old songs, and I make my friends laugh on purpose. The dark hates shared laughter. Every so often, at the edge of my headlights, behind a tired fence, I almost see a man in old clothes who does not move because he does not need to. He is not the one who drives. I am. I keep going. I do not look back, and the road, full of the voices it keeps, listens to me not listen and lets me pass. I was sure the road was playing tricks on us. I just didn't know how bad it would get. I'm telling you what happened in the Appalachian Mountains, so you can hear it straight from me. I grew up in a small coastal town, the kind where the streetlights buzz at night and the ocean wind rattles the windows. My dad fixed boats, my mom worked the library desk. When I was 9, I got lost in a roadside corn maze after a fall fair. I learned 2 things that day. I don't like tight places, and silence is not always empty. Since then, I keep maps in my glove box, a compass on my keychain, and a little notebook where I write times, mile markers, and anything that feels off. It helps me feel calm. That's my background. That's my head. I need things to make sense. We were on a loose road trip driving from Savannah toward Erie. We didn't have a plan, not really. The whole point was to skip the main highways and wander the old routes that bend through the hills like threads in a quilt. It was me, my cousin Mika, and our friend Jules. We crammed into Mika's creaky Chevy S10 with a cooler full of cheap snacks and a speaker that never agreed with our playlists. We said we'd find the kind of diners that don't show up on maps, the kind of motels with buzzing ice machines and plastic room keys and names that used to mean something 30 years ago. By late afternoon, we had been driving since morning, climbing in and out of ridges. Somewhere north of Greenville, past barns with tin roofs and fields of tall grass, we saw a tired green sign pointing to a place called Birch Hollow. The arrow leaned like it had a sore neck. "Let's check it," Mika said. He loved detours. He loved the feeling that a side road might hold a secret. He was steering, so we went. We turned off the better road and met a narrow one. It shrank fast. The edges broke away into weeds. Tall grass pushed through the cracks like green fingers. The lane lines were ghosts. The trees leaned in so tight the branches touched overhead and scraped the truck like someone whispering with their nails. Old metal signs popped up here and there, bent and chewed by time. Some had letters missing. Some warned about things that didn't seem real anymore. The pavement curled down the ridge. Every few seconds, I glanced out the side window and saw nothing but a drop so steep it felt like the ground forgot to exist. We passed a bait shack that looked eaten by vines. A dead pickup sat on blocks like a broken animal. The paint peeled in big curls, and the letters on the sign had slipped around, spelling nothing. Mika joked about backwoods banjos. We laughed, but the laugh ran out quick and left the air heavy. Then the phone map froze. We still rolled forward, but the blue dot stopped and stared at us. The signal bars fell away. The compass spun once and went to sleep. Mika tapped the screen, then shrugged. "We'll find the town," he said. He dropped the phone in the cup holder like it had said something rude. A few minutes later, we saw a torn guardrail and a speed sign pushed sideways. Someone had painted a wide, toothy smile across it in thick black drips. The grin ran down like it was melting. We made a face. We kept going. A few minutes after that, we passed the exact same spot, torn rail. Sideways sign, melting grin. "Did we turn around?" I asked. Mika shook his head. "No turns," he said. "No forks. Just this." The third time we passed it, I took a photo. Same broken rail. Same crooked sign. Same missing corner. The same. No room for doubt. Then came a fourth. Jules woke up in the back and sat up slow. "Didn't we already see that?" he asked. We told him we weren't joking. He watched the road with wide eyes. He pressed both hands against the back of our seats like bracing for a crash. "Maybe the road loops," he said, like a circle, but there had been no turns. No choices. Just one old path through trees that felt too close. Mika slowed and pulled into a rough dirt turnout. It looked like it might have been a trailhead once. A broken wooden bench sagged. A trash can had no bottom. It was just a rusty ring. Something green and square sat under vines. It looked like a dead vending machine. We got out without saying we needed to. We just needed to stand still, to make the world stop sliding under our wheels. That's when I saw the other road. It was smaller than the one we'd been on, almost hidden behind the trees. It dropped steep and slim, barely wider than the truck. No power poles. No reflectors. No traffic signs facing us. Only a chain-link fence beside it, the kind rangers use, with a red warning sign hanging backward. Mika walked over and twisted it around. The paint flaked onto his fingers. It read, "No outlet. Do not enter after dark." The sky was already dim. The sun had slid behind a ridge, and the blue had turned that deep, cold color that makes shadows look like holes. I said we should go back the way we came. Even if we had to see the grin sign again, at least the road was known. Jules shook his head. "If we're stuck in a loop," he said, "it won't matter. Maybe this drops us out somewhere else." Maybe it's the only way. Mika was already climbing into the truck. He didn't like waiting. When he felt pulled, he went. I swallowed my worry and got in too. The dirt path was a mess. Deep pits, tight corners, hanging limbs that raked the roof with a sound like teeth on tin. At one point, we had to slide around a fallen log, and the whole truck tilted like it wanted to lie down. We crept and slid and crept again, and there were no signs, no side tracks, no signs of anyone. The trees kept coming. The dark kept getting heavier. Then, all at once, the trees stepped back. The ground dropped into a bowl. We rolled to the bottom. In the center sat a small structure. It was wood and stone, old. Windows like dead eyes. No light. No path leading to it. Just a wide circle of dirt, as if people used to drive around it and stop, but not now. Not for a long time. Something stood outside it. At first, it looked like a man in a long coat. It faced us. It didn't move. It didn't wave. It didn't react at all. It was just there. Jules leaned forward, hopeful. Maybe he knows the way out, he said. Maybe he's a ranger. My throat tightened. Don't open the window, I said. Micah rolled it down halfway. Hey, he called. You okay? We're trying to get back to the main road. The figure did not answer. It did not even tilt its head. Mika flicked the high beams, a quick flash. The light hit the figure full on, and my skin went cold. It was not a face. It was a face painted on, not like a mask strapped over skin. Like the head itself was flat and made to be looked at. The eyes were black smears. The mouth was a long, red line. It was a picture of a face, not a face that could change. The head tipped, not like a person listening to you, but like it was trying to hear something far away. Then it took a step. Then another. I should have heard gravel crunch. I should have heard cloth. I heard nothing at all. Back up, I said. Mika didn't argue. He threw it into reverse. The figure stopped for a blink. Then it was closer, without crossing the space between, like someone cut out a few seconds and threw them away. Go, I yelled. The truck spun and clawed up the slope. I turned for one look, only one. The figure stood at the top of the hollow, looking up, head angled, the same red-lined mouth never opening, eyes like smears that still somehow watched. We hit pavement with a thud that knocked the mirror sideways. We looked for the turnout with the broken bench and the dead machine. It wasn't there now, just trees, old and thick. The road split into three like a trident. No arrows, no markers. All three paths looked the same, smooth like nothing had ever happened to them. Jules breathed too fast, like he'd run a mile. Did we drive onto some test range? He asked. Like a fake town? Mika didn't answer. He picked the middle road. It dropped, rose, bent, and then it straightened and changed under our tires. Lines. Shoulder, reflective dots. In the mirror, a semi's lights rose like a sunrise. We reached a gas station a few miles later. The truck trembled to a stop under a bright awning. We climbed out and stood in the safe light, not talking. The night out past the pumps felt like a big throat waiting to swallow sound. There were 3 long gouges on the passenger side of the truck. Deep, through paint, through primer. Like something sharp had dragged across the door while we moved. Something caught in the back door seal, something pale. I reached to pull it free. I thought it was a strip of cloth. It crinkled under my fingers. It wasn't fabric. It was paper. Dry and old like wallpaper from a forgotten room. A face was drawn on it. 3 black circles and 1 red line. Eyes, mouth. I let it drop on the concrete. Don't touch it, I said. Mika didn't. None of us did. Inside, I stared at the security camera feed behind the register while I paid for gas and water. On the top left screen, I saw our truck. I saw the bed. I saw the back bumper. And I saw something standing behind it, shaped like a person in a coat, head tilted, face too smooth. The picture of a face where a face should be. I spun around. The space behind our truck was empty. The pump hose swayed a little in the wind, and that was all. Your camera lagging? I asked the cashier. Sometimes, he said. He didn't look up. I went back outside. "We need to drive," I said, "now." We got back on the road. We kept the radio off. The tires hummed loud. The mountains sat around us like big sleeping things. Every few minutes I checked the time and wrote it down to prove the night was still moving. That's when the other signs started. We passed a tan sedan, then a gray SUV, then an old blue coupe. All different makes, all different drivers, all different bodies. But everyone had the same license plate. Same letters, same numbers. I said it out loud the second time. I said it louder the third. We took a picture of the next one. The details matched. My hands felt cold and too big on the phone. We pulled over again on the shoulder where you could see a valley of small lights. Houses, porches, people breathing in their sleep. I told myself the world was still there. I opened my camera roll to check the pictures from that afternoon. Photos from the road. Photos of the view. Photos of our snacks lined up on the dash. And in each one, somewhere in the frame, there stood an extra person. A tall one in old clothes, wool coat, odd hat face flat, head tilted, always at the edge, like a page corner you could turn. "Tell me you put that in," I said. "Tell me it's a filter." Mika and Jules both shook their heads. We drove on. Something in the truck smelled like old, damp wood. The road stretched. The night held. Every time we passed a reflective sign, I waited to see a mouth slashed across it. I told myself we were moving forward. I told myself the clock was real. I told myself we would reach another town, another gas station, another breakfast place with sticky syrup bottles and coffee that tastes like pennies. We did reach a town. We did find a motel with a flickering sign that said Ridgeview, though there was no ridge you could see from the lot. We took a room with 2 beds and a spread so thin the patterns showed the mattress under. The air unit chattered like old teeth. I showered. I stared at the drain until the water ran clear. I wanted to wash the mountain off. The room had a tiny diner menu, the kind you hold with one hand and the page curls. I flipped it over and pressed my phone on top to make it flat. It was just a menu. It was only a list of food and a cartoon smiling pancake. Normal. I needed normal. Mika snored. Jules scrolled. The world narrowed to 4 walls and a door we could lock. I slept in my clothes. In the morning, I checked the truck like a doctor. The scratches were still there. The strip of paper was gone from the ground. The gas station receipt in my pocket had faded overnight, like the ink was shy. We bought coffee next door and breakfast burritos we could hardly taste. The TV on the counter showed a local channel with a crawl about school closings. The hills had low fog, the kind that sticks to your ankles in your mind even when you're inside. We kept moving north. I would like to say the rest of the trip was normal. I would like to say we laughed about it later, but that would be a lie. Even when the road had good lines and the daylight sat in the trees like gold, I glanced at every speed sign and every guardrail and every truck mirror. I checked every photo twice. Sometimes we saw nothing strange. Sometimes I'm sure we did. 2 weeks later, back at my apartment, Jules sent a message to the group chat. It was a link to a blog run by a local hiking club. The post was about a closed trail outside Birch Hollow. It said the path had been blocked since the 1970s, when a ranger post burned and the ground slipped. There was a photo. It was blurry, but the building looked like the one we saw. The post said something about lights seen in the trees, and sounds like paper ripping when no one moved, and footsteps that didn't make sound, and it said that a few hikers had gone near the old post and seen figures in long coats. Not one. More than one. In the photo on the blog, 3 shapes stood near the building. 2 wore coats. The third was taller. All 3 had faces that looked painted on, eyes like smears, mouths like a red mark. I stared until the screen went dark. I pressed my thumb so hard I could see my heart beat in the nail. Then I wrote my notes in my small book. The date, the time, the blog title. I wrote we saw it. We were not first. Sometimes, late at night, I hear the sound of branches scratching metal. The wall heater clicks like a door unlocking. I sleep with a paper map under my pillow now. It's silly. I know, but it is not for directions. It is for paper. When I hold paper, I can tell if it is right. I can tell if it was made to be written on or if it was torn from a wall where someone drew a face, 3 black circles and 1 red line, and left it to wait for a door to open. I quit on a Tuesday. I thought the Appalachian mountains would heal me. My name is Aaron Keller, and this is the story of the drive that changed me forever. For 10 years, I fixed office printers. That was my life: gray cubicles, bad coffee, and the endless order to smile more. The last time my manager said it, I didn't argue. I didn't curse. I just shut my laptop, walked out of the meeting, and never went back. I didn't pack much. A few shirts, a toothbrush, a charger, some snacks. I threw it all into my beat-up gray sedan and pointed east. I had no destination. No plan. Just the back roads that cut through the folds of the Appalachian Mountains. For the first few days, it felt almost like freedom. The ridges rose on either side like sleeping giants. Small towns with names that blurred together passed behind me. Ash Trace, Miller's Bend, Pine Hollow. I played my old playlist until it was just noise. The mountains swallowed the signals. It was just me, the hum of the tires, and silence. By late afternoon on the 4th day, I pulled into a gas station outside a little town called Bracken's Notch. 1 pump. A flickering neon sign that said OPE when it tried to spell open. The posters in the window showed snacks that had expired 10 years earlier. While the car filled, I bent to check the tires. That's when I saw him. He stepped out from behind the station wall like he'd been waiting for me, mid-30s, maybe older. Worn out, but not dirty. His thin windbreaker hung loose over a faded sweater. Jeans too short, shoes soaked through, squishing with each step. "You going east?" he asked. His voice was steady, but something about the way he said it made my stomach turn. He held out a few damp bills. 40. "I just need a ride to Ravens Hollow," past the quarry. I'd never heard of Ravens Hollow. It didn't sound real. When I asked what was there, he didn't explain. He just stared at the road like he was trying to remember it from a dream. He didn't look dangerous. And maybe I wanted company, so I said yes. We pulled back onto the highway. For the first 10 minutes, he was silent. No chatter, no music. Just the rhythm of the wheels. I thought maybe he'd fallen asleep, but when I glanced over, his eyes were wide open, fixed on the trees. Watching, waiting. That's when the road began to shift. The turns grew sharper. Branches brushed the car like fingers. The mile markers jumped out of order, 12, then 7, then 11 again. My phone showed signal, but the GPS lagged behind, skipping seconds, then minutes. "You sure this is the way?" I asked. He didn't look at me. He just whispered. It always begins like this. Static bled from the speakers, even though the radio was off. I twisted the dial. Nothing but white noise. Then we passed a billboard, huge, towering over the road. No text. Just a pale gray sky and a staircase broken in half, floating in the air. The stranger twitched. Just a flinch, like he recognized it. I slowed the car. "Don't stop," he said. "Just keep driving." The road thinned to gravel, no lines, no signs. Just a narrow throat between trees. Then, suddenly, he told me to pull over. A rusted gate stood half open on the right, hanging from one hinge. Behind it, a gravel path vanished into the woods. No mailbox, no sign, nothing but shadows. He got out, closed the door, and stood still. "Is this Ravens Hollow?" I asked. He didn't answer. He just kept staring into the trees. Then he said, soft and flat, "You need to leave now. Don't look back." The cold that hit me wasn't from the air. It was inside, heavy as stone. "Are you okay?" I asked. He still didn't turn. Then, almost whispering to himself, "You won't find it on a map. You only get there if you're already gone." That's when I saw them. Figures stepping out from the trees, the same height as him. The same clothes, the same face. But they moved wrong, like they'd learned to walk by watching humans and hadn't gotten it quite right. One, then another, then more. A dozen identical copies standing in silence, staring with blank eyes. I slammed my foot on the gas. I didn't look in the mirror. I didn't breathe until I saw lights. A diner sign glowing through the trees, shaped like a steaming coffee cup. I pulled in crooked, stumbled inside. The waitress, Mara, looked me over like she could see my hands shaking. "You all right, hon?" she asked. I asked her about Raven's Hollow. Her face changed, not surprise. Recognition she didn't want. "That's not around here," she said firmly. I told her about the quarry, the billboard, the gate. She shook her head. "Nothing like that for miles." Then she set a plate in front of me, eggs, toast, hash browns. The toast already had bite marks. I froze. Mara just said, "Kitchen's been temperamental," and walked away. I drove on until I found a roadside motel. A buzzing yellow sign, a clerk who barely looked up. The room had one thin bed, one buzzing light, and a TV older than me. I clicked it on. Static. Then suddenly live footage of the parking lot outside. My car. The passenger door hanging open. The dome light glowing. Inside, someone sat in the passenger seat. Still, watching forward. I pulled the curtains back. The lot was empty. My car was shut tight. I turned back. On the screen, the figure was still there. In the morning, I grabbed my wallet to pay for gas. The 40 he'd given me was still there, but the bills were soft, damp, and stained. Appalachian soil pressed into every crease. When I brushed it off, the smell of wet earth filled the car. I almost threw the money out. Instead, I shoved it deep in the glove box. Weeks later, I tried searching for Raven's Hollow. Nothing. No records. No old maps. Not even conspiracy forums. I called the state tourism office. The woman on the phone said flatly, "There's no town by that name in Kentucky or West Virginia." Then she hung up, but the dirt is still in my wallet. And some nights, my phone buzzes with a video from an unknown number. It shows my car parked outside. The passenger door open, and someone sitting inside waiting. That's the story of my Appalachian Mountains road trip. I left to escape my old life. Instead, I found something I can't explain. Something that followed me out of those hills. So I'll leave you with this. If you ever find yourself on those roads, and the mile markers jump, and the trees close in too tight, don't stop. Don't look back. And if a man in a green sweater asks where you're headed, tell him, not east, not tonight. I went looking for quiet and found something that was waiting for me. My name is Armand, 26, night shift stalker at a warehouse near the river. My life felt stuck, late rent, a breakup that still echoed, and a mind that wouldn't stop racing. I used to fix broken fans with tape and a spoon. Now I could barely fix a grocery list. So I borrowed my cousin Nico Marcus' tired old sedan for a week-long solo trip into the Appalachian Mountains. No big highways, no big plans. Just the narrow back roads, a paper map with coffee stains, and me trying to breathe. The car was nothing special, a dull blue old Corolla with a roofliner that sagged like a loose shirt. The gas gauge lied for fun. The fan belt screamed every time the engine woke. I had to jiggle the key a certain way or the starter would sulk. But the car rolled when I asked, and that felt like a promise. The first days went smooth. I kept to county roads that curled between hills and creeks. I passed small towns with names that felt like secrets. Juniper Gap, Cedar Hollow, Blue Lantern. People still waved at passing cars. I ate grilled cheese on chipped plates and slept in motels where the curtains fought each other and lost. I turned the radio knob and got old country music that faded in and out like shy ghosts. I drove with the windows down and let wind scrub my thoughts clean. But a strange thing followed me from place to place. Every person who told me goodbye used the same sentence. A gas station kid said it with a grin. A motel clerk whispered it like a prayer. An old farmer nodded and said it like the weather. They all said, "See you on the other side." The first time, I laughed. The second time, I wrote it down on a receipt. The third time, I stopped laughing. On the fourth day, the quiet changed shape. I had driven beyond a place called Dogwood Bend and kept going until the map turned into faint gray lines and the phone gave up. No bars. No houses. no mailboxes. Just two-lane blacktop slipping through tall trees that held back the light. The sky went flat and pale, the color of old tin. I drove another hour without seeing a soul. My back burned from the seat. My head buzzed from the silence. I found a small gravel pull-off, barely wider than my car, no sign, just ruts and stones. I parked, killed the engine, and stepped out. The air pressed in. No birds sang. No wind moved. The only sound was the soft ticking of the cooling engine, like the car was counting to calm itself. I stretched until my spine popped. I sipped warm water. I thought about stepping a few paces into the trees just to wake up my legs. That's when I saw him. Far down the road, a figure walked toward me. At first I thought hiker, but he had no pack. No coat tied around his waist, no bike. He wore a dingy green polo with one corner of the collar flipped and dark jeans that were too clean for a job and too dusty for a store. On his feet, sneakers without laces. His hands swung easy. In one, he held a brown bottle with the label rubbed off. In the other, he carried a knife. The long kitchen kind, the kind that remembers onions. He was close enough for me to reach the door if I didn't fumble. Too close for comfort. I forced my voice to sound normal. "You all right out here?" He didn't answer. He kept walking. At the edge of the pull-off, he stopped, lifted the knife a little, and smiled like we were about to share a private joke. "You aren't the one I was waiting for," he said. That sentence lodged under my ribs. My mouth made a shaky laugh. "Maybe pour that drink into a cup," I said, nodding to the bottle. No point dropping glass on the road. He watched me for a heartbeat, then nodded slow. "Yeah, come on. Let's do that." He motioned at my car like we were partners in a plan I hadn't heard. I walked toward the driver's door, trying not to rush. His footsteps were light and close. I slid in and left the door half open, like we were just being friendly. He leaned down to the window. The knife hovered a few inches from my arm. I could see scratches on the blade. "Glove box," he said. "You got cups." My stomach rolled. I nodded, reached toward the latch, and then hit the lock instead. Twist. Jiggle. The engine coughed awake with that belt scream. I stomped the gas. Gravel sprayed. The car lurched forward. He stumbled back and shouted something that broke in the middle. I didn't look at him. I didn't look in the mirror for 10 long minutes. When I finally checked, the road behind me was empty. No car, no man. Only the blacktop and trees winding away. The fog came in slow after that, rising from the ditches like smoke from a careful fire. My headlights cut across it, and the light bounced back faces, soft and white, like someone pressing against frosted glass. A girl with braids. A man with a scar above his lip. An older woman with tired eyes. For a blink, I saw my own face 10 years younger, and then it slid away. I eased off the gas and rolled past a small white chapel that appeared in the haze like a picture card. "Springvale Mission," said the peeling sign. A woman in a blue coat stood by the steps. She raised a hand. I pulled over because I needed a real voice. "You look lost," she said gently. "Someone came at me with a knife," I said. "Back up the road." She nodded once, like this was weather she already knew. "You don't want that road." She reached into her coat and took out a hand-drawn map, folded into quarters. Pencil lines traced old paths. Little notes marked landmarks. She tapped a tiny dot at the end of a thin line. "Dead end." "It's not marked online, but it's there." "Why the dead end?" I asked. "You'll feel it," she said. She pressed the map into my hands. "If the fog thickens, keep your wheels where they already went." Then she smiled a tired smile and said the sentence everyone else said, soft as a promise, "See you on the other side." I drove on, the map on my lap like a warm bird. The fog rose and fell. The faces slipped and hid. The road turned from clean blacktop to cracked asphalt stitched with tar. Then headlights appeared ahead, an old white pickup. Relief hit me so hard I almost laughed. I flashed my lights and waved. The truck slowed and the driver leaned out. "Everything okay?" Before I could answer, a dusty gray sedan swung up behind me and stopped too close. The driver's door flew open. I knew the shirt before I knew the face. Green collar. Wrong smile. Knife. He shouted that I had his things. He shouted that I took something. His words slurred like he was trying to speak through water. "That's him," I yelled to the truck. "That's the guy." The driver didn't hesitate. He yanked the truck sideways, blocking the road. The man with the knife stomped his brakes, skidded, then slammed his car into reverse and tore off, gravel rattling like hail. The truck driver looked back at me and called, "Follow us." I did, because the fear in me needed a leader. They led me to a tired gas station on the edge of Hickory Ridge, where half the letters were missing from the sign. Inside, the cashier chewed gum, eyes flat, like none of this could surprise him. He handed me the phone. I called the sheriff. My hands shook so hard I had to repeat everything twice. 2 deputies came, big men with quiet faces. They took statements from me, the truck guys, and the cashier. When I described the man, the clothes, the knife, the strange line about waiting for someone, the older deputy went very still. "We've had reports," he said. "Someone living out in the woods near the old quarry. No fixed place. Wanders. Sometimes asks for rides. Sometimes," he looked away. "You were smart to drive." I didn't ask what "sometimes" meant. I didn't want his picture in my head. The deputies offered to escort me to a motel near the main road. I said yes. The motel smelled like bleach and tired coffee. I lay on the bed fully dressed, keys in my fist. Every creak in the hall sounded like a step at my door. I drifted for a few minutes. In that thin sleep, the fog bunched at the window and my headlights reflected faces again, layered, patient, waiting. When I jolted awake, my heart kicked hard. On the nightstand lay the hand-drawn map. I didn't remember bringing it inside. I unfolded it and found the tiny dot for dead end. Next to it, in faint pencil, was a note I hadn't seen before. "When you reach it, don't what? Don't stop, don't turn, don't look." At first light, I drove again. I should have taken the highway home. I didn't. I followed the map past the old quarry, over a narrow iron bridge where the boards knocked under my tires like a slow heartbeat, along Cold Switch Ridge, and through a stand of hemlock that made the road feel like a tunnel. The fog grew thicker, but I kept my wheels where they already went, just as the woman told me. Then the road opened into a flat. Ahead, the blacktop looked normal, smooth and straight. But my headlights hit a bright, milky wall and the light didn't cross. It spilled and stopped. The road ended where the world refused it. In that wall, faces floated, familiar and strange. The cashier, the deputies, the truck driver, the woman in the blue coat, even a younger me. Their mouths moved together. In one soft voice, they said, "See you on the other side." A shape shifted in the brush to my left. A gray sedan sat crooked in the ditch, wet with dew. A green Polo hung on the driver's seat, empty like a shed skin. The passenger handle of my car ticked, just once, the gentle try of a polite guest. My breath stopped. The handle ticked again. A low voice spoke right by the glass. "You came anyway," it said, almost pleased. "Not the one I waited for, but you came." I stared at the wall of fog and thought about the note. "When you reach it, don't." My hands shook on the wheel. I put the car in reverse and rolled back slow, then faster, keeping my tires in my own tracks. The faces dimmed. The fog thinned. The wall stayed where it was, patient as a closed eye. I found the highway. I broke my rule. The big road held me like a guardrail holds a secret. At a new gas station, a man in a safety vest held the door and said, warm and casual, "See you on the other side." I answered nothing. I drove until the sun sank and the sky turned to coal. 2 days later, I reached home. My mother hugged me. She didn't ask for stories. That night, from her room, sleepy and kind, she called, "Good night, Beta. See you on the other side." I froze in the hallway because now it sounded like a door clicking in the dark. Sometimes, steam from a pot turns to fog and a face shows for a blink. Sometimes, a stranger at a crosswalk smiles and mouths that same goodbye. I keep the hand-drawn map folded in my wallet. On the back, in tiny pencil, I later noticed one more line. If it finds you first, wait. I don't know what that means. I only know I heard soft tapping at our back door one night. 3 light raps, a pause, 3 more, and I waited, like the note said. The tapping stopped. The house breathed again. So this is my voiceover, the story I tell when the room is dark and the past sits beside me. I went to the mountains to clear my head. I found roads that didn't want to end, and a place where every person says the same goodbye, and a fog that shows faces back to the ones who stare, and a hand-drawn map that marks a dead end you won't find online. If you ever drive those back roads and someone lifts a knife and smiles and says you're not the one, please keep your wheels where they already went. If you reach the wall, don't. And if we pass out there someday, if our headlights touch in the mist, you'll know me. I'll be the one who nods, who keeps both hands on the wheel, and who says, soft and true, the only line any of us ever seem to have. See you on the other side. I grew up believing that roads could carry you out of any trouble if you just kept moving. When I was a kid, my mom worked nights at a diner near the Blue Ridge, and my uncle drove long-haul trucks through the smoky foothills. I learned to read maps before I could ride a bike. When things got hard at home, I would trace little gray lines with my finger and whisper the names of places like they were good luck charms. I promised myself that one day I would take a week and go where the roads whispered. No big plan, no hotel money, just a friend and time. That week came late in summer. My best friend from high school, Rory Lane, said yes before I finished asking. We had a little money, not much. Enough for gas, cheap burgers, and a bag of off-brand energy drinks that made our tongues taste like metal. We slept in the car with our backpacks under our heads, and we told each other that rough sleep was part of the adventure. We started near old mining towns and kept the Appalachians to our left, like the mountains were a slow-moving shadow walking beside us. We wanted the tiny roads, the thin gray lines that maps draw like pencil scars. Highways felt loud and flat. We wanted strange bridges and forgotten signs and the long dart between towns. The first days felt like we had broken into a secret. We rolled past mills with broken windows and saw hand-painted arrows for roadside caves that were probably shut for 10 years. We laughed when the map app lost us and said rerouting over and over like it was embarrassed. At night, we parked near free campgrounds or wide shoulders and stared up at stars like holes punched in black cloth. We told ghost stories and then agreed not to scare each other and then scared each other anyway, because that is what friends do. On the third night, the hills leaned closer and the road thinned and cracked. The trees formed a tunnel, and the dark felt old, not city dark, not bedroom dark. It was mind dark, church basement dark, thick and patient. Our headlights made a short slice in front of us, and beyond that was a black that ate everything. Rory had a flannel blanket tucked under her chin, and she breathed slow and even. I had a warm soda that tasted like nothing, but I kept sipping because it kept me awake. The music was too soft, like it was in another room. I told myself a town was coming soon. I told myself many things. Then I saw the car. It sat on the shoulder on the right, maybe a few hundred feet ahead. At first it looked like any old sedan, the kind your grandpa might drive if he still drove. Pale blue or gray, it was hard to tell with our lights bouncing. I eased off the gas because that is what your body does when it thinks someone might need help. I checked for hazard lights. There were none. I looked for phone glow. Nothing. Then I saw the doors. All 4 doors were wide open. Not a little. Not like someone stepped out to stretch. They were flung open, like arms held straight out. The front doors and the back doors were open to the same angle, neat and even, like they were measured. There was no one standing there. No voice calling. No shuffle of feet in the trees. No movement anywhere. The dark felt like a paused movie. I kept rolling forward, and my hands tightened on the wheel. The open doors made something in my chest go cold. It did not feel like an accident. It felt like a picture set out to be looked at. I wanted to stop, and I wanted to go, and those 2 wants tore me in half for a breath. I went. I passed the car. I did not look into the seats. I did not look in the rear view. I kept my eyes on the ribbon of road and counted my breaths all the way to 10, then started over. Minutes later, Rory woke and asked how long she had been out. I told her about the car. She made a small laugh and said I was spinning a spooky story because I was tired. When she saw my face, she stopped laughing. She said she would take the wheel. I didn't argue. We pulled into a gravel pull-off with weeds high as my shoulder and traded seats in a hurry. The air felt too warm for night, like someone had left an oven door open. There was no breeze, no bugs, no crickets, just our feet on stone and the soft pop of cooling metal. We'd buckled and rolled back onto the road. Rory did not put on music. She gripped the wheel at 10 and 2 like a school driver. Her eyes stayed wide and bright. I leaned my head on the glass and tried to let sleep drag me under for a moment. Then she whispered my name in a voice so small I almost did not hear it. She said, "Evan, that car is behind us." I twisted around. Far back on the dark line of the road, 2 points of light had appeared. Headlights. That alone is nothing. Roads carry cars, but the way the lights moved made my skin prickle. They came forward in a perfectly steady way, like a ruler sliding on a desk. They did not bounce or rise on hills. They did not sway. They drew a straight line to us. The shape filled our mirror. A pale sedan, older model, the kind with long, flat sides. It matched the one on the shoulder. My stomach dropped. The doors were still open, all four. Open wide, like the car had a mouth and it was trying to swallow the night. The doors did not shake in the wind. They did not move at all, as if air could not touch them. I said Rory's name without meaning to, and she pressed the gas. The speedometer climbed, 50, 60, 70, 70. The little car we drove buzzed and rattled, and the road started to curve like a ribbon melting. The pale sedan did not fall back. It did not surge forward. It held the exact same distance, as if a rope tied us together tight. We took a bend so sharp I felt the world tip, but when the car straightened, the lights were still there, perfect, calm, patient. "Turn if you see a turn," I said. Any turn. A narrow road broke off to the right, just gravel under trees, no sign, no marker. Rory jerked the wheel. Our back tires threw up a cloud, and I felt stones ping the bottom of our car like teeth. We shot onto the spur, and the pale sedan followed without bump or slide, smooth and easy like it had known all along we would choose it. Our headlights found the trunks of pines and a thin thread of road. The air smelled hot and sweet, almost like syrup left too long on a stove. The gravel thrummed under us. We hit ruts that made my jaw clack. I looked back to see how close it was now, and for one terrible second the car lined up perfectly in the back window like a picture on a wall. I saw the open doors clear. I saw the empty driver's seat, no head, no hands, no shadow, nothing where a person should be. I said words that were not words and told Rory to go faster. The tires vibrated so hard it felt like the car might come apart like a toy. The dash lights trembled. Rory stared down the tight road and did not blink. Then the headlights behind us went out. Just like that, gone. Not dim, not turned, not turned. No swing into a ditch, one heartbeat there. Next heartbeat, not there. The dark behind us was a new wall. I kept watching, waiting for the lights to blink back on from a bad angle or from some hidden curve. They did not. Just the black, like a door had closed. Rory did not slow. Neither did I breathe right. We waited for the sedan to appear again like a magic trick. It did not. The road widened, and the trees fell back, and a glow rose in the distance. Town light. We rolled into a little place with a gas station that buzzed, and a sign with letters that tired themselves out and turned off and on. Rory pulled under the brightest lamp and cut the engine. We sat there with our hands still on things because it felt dangerous to let go. We did not talk for a long time. Then we said the only thing that made sense. We said we were done. The trip was over. At first light, we would drive home by highway and not look for pretty views. We would not stop for a picture. We would not chase thin gray lines. We went inside the store to stand in the light. The floor was sticky. The cooler hummed. The cashier did not look at us. I pressed my fingers into a cold bottle and felt the label crackle and then put it back because anything I swallowed would come right up. We went to the car and watched the mirror like it was a window that the night could climb through. Nothing came. When morning drew a pale stripe over the lot, we started the car and followed big green signs like soldiers. We went home. People think the story ends there, but it does not, because the story did not leave me when we left the mountains. It followed me in a quiet way. When I park at night and open my door, I feel the push of air against it, and I think about doors that stayed wide at speed. When I pass a church bulletin, I look for my name even though there is no reason it would be there. I avoid small gravel roads I would have loved once. I dream sometimes that I am sitting in the back seat of my own car and there is no one driving, and the road is calm, and I can't make my hands move. Rory says the same. When I call her, she says she still hears the gravel hitting metal. She still tastes pennies. She turns her rearview mirror inward before she gets out at night, like it might catch something she is not ready to see. We speak about it in short pieces, as if the story is a strong smell and we need to step outside for air between sentences. If you need my background to understand why this cut me so deep, here it is. When I was little, my uncle taught me to trust road rules. He said every road tells the truth if you pay attention. Curves lean the way they mean to. Signs do not lie. Air pushes doors. Headlights show what is there. That night, the rules broke. The doors did not move. The car did not drive like a person or like a machine with a person inside. The headlights ended like a sentence that someone snipped in the middle. I learned that sometimes a road does not tell the truth you expect. Sometimes it tells a different truth, and you have to live with it because you lived through it. I try to make sense of it. Sometimes I think it was grief with a shape, and it climbed into a shell of metal to follow. Maybe someone once opened all 4 doors on that shoulder and never came back to close them, and the road kept that moment like a photo. Maybe the moment grew legs. Maybe it wandered. Sometimes I think my mind put puzzle pieces together wrong because fear pressed down on it too hard. 2 cars, wrong angles, nerves, shadows. But I remember the empty seat. I remember the still doors. I remember the calm, steady way it kept the same distance no matter our speed. Fear lies sometimes, yes, but fear also points when it needs you to move. If you drive those thin gray lines, promise me a few things. If something looks staged in the night, trust that feeling. If the dark feels old and heavy, give it respect. If a car sits with all doors open and no one in sight, keep moving and call for help when you reach light. If headlights hold you like a leash, do not argue with them. Take a turn. Take another. Find a town and a buzzing lamp and sit under it until the world fits again. Rory and I never went back to that place. We moved on with our lives in the way people do. Work, bills, birthdays, winter boots, spring rain. But when the sky goes dark in that particular Appalachian way, when the trees close ranks and the night turns into a tunnel with a mouth at the end, I feel the wheel in my hands again. I see dust glow in our headlights like tiny ghosts. I hear the gravel chorus under us and the engine's thin cry. Then I look in the mirror, and it is just me looking back. Just me, small and breathing. I keep driving, and sometimes, when the road is quiet and kind, I whisper thank you to whatever turned its lights off and let us go. I do not know what it was. I do not think I want to. I only know we came home, and that is more than many stories can say. Last fall, my friend Devin Cole moved down to Cedar Hollow, Tennessee. New job, quick start, not enough time to bring his old pickup. He called me from a folding chair in an empty apartment and said, "Noah, can you drive the truck down for me?" I wasn't working that month. I had a little time, a little hunger to leave town, and a good excuse to watch miles roll under me. I said yes. Free gas, a little travel money, a road to follow. I started on a Tuesday just after sunrise. Late October, hoodie weather in the morning, t-shirt by noon. I packed light, a small duffel, a cooler with 3 waters and a turkey sandwich, and an old ball cap with a bent brim. The pickup was a battered thing with a square nose and a seat that squeaked when you breathed. I liked it right away. The engine had a warm, steady sound, the sound of something that wants to go. The first hours were easy. Northwest Ohio gave way to rolling land, then low hills, light traffic, blue sky. The air felt clean. I put one arm out the window and let the wind push the tired out of my bones. The road south into the Appalachian foothills is simple if you follow the big signs. But my phone blinked up an alternate route once I crossed into the edge of eastern Kentucky. Save 52 minutes, it said. A smaller state highway, 2 lanes, curving through dark green folds. I have a weakness for quiet roads in small numbers. I pressed accept. That turn on to the little state route was the last normal moment. At first, it was just pretty. The road narrowed. Trees rose on both sides, tall and close, like a tunnel made of pine and oak. Then the shoulders faded. No guardrails, just a steep ditch and a drop into brush. Patches of pavement showed long cracks like riverbeds. I kept both hands firm on the wheel because the pickup liked to wiggle over the splits. No other cars came toward me. None passed me from behind. It felt like I had slipped into a thin place where the world was only me, a road, and the sound of my engine. I checked the phone. 9 miles to next turn, easy. I watched the lines slide by. A few minutes later, I glanced again. 9 miles to next turn. I laughed a little. A glitch. Mountains can be bad for signal. Another minute. 9 miles to next turn. The number would not drop. I could feel the joke turn into a stone in my stomach. Time moved. My dashboard clock ticked. My podcast passed a whole story, but the road did not count down. The map showed the same thin line and the same little arrow, as if it had pressed pause. No driveways, no mailboxes, no poles with wire, only trees and that tight strip of dark road. The air outside went still, the kind of still where even the bugs don't bother. I told myself, calm down. It's just a map error. Then the gas station appeared, so sudden it felt like I had blinked and someone had set it down while my eyes were shut. No brand sign, no flag. Just a low concrete building with a single rusty pump and a flickering light under a crooked tin awning. I sighed, like I had been holding my breath for a week. The tank was half full, but I pulled in anyway because I needed a reset. The pump was old. You had to lift a metal arm until it clicked like a lock. Then the numbers rolled slow, heavy, almost lazy. It worked, though. The gas smelled sharp and real. I filled the tank and went inside. The air in there was stale, like a room that forgot to open a window all summer. A shelf of canned soup, a few dusty crackers, a wall of motor oil bottles lined up like soldiers. The old cooler hummed like a giant bee. I grabbed a water and a bag of peanuts and went to the counter. The man behind the register was tall and thin, a straight line from hat to boots. His eyes sat deep, like the light had to work hard to reach them. He didn't say hi. He didn't nod. He just watched me like a slow leak in the floor. He scanned the water and the peanuts. The register beeped, 1, 2. He tapped some numbers. Just before the total showed, he looked up and said, in a voice that barely cleared his lips, "Don't stop for anyone on that road." That was all. No smile. No warning tone. Like he was reading cloudy with a chance of rain off a screen. I gave a weak laugh because that is what you do when you don't know what to do. He did not move. He gave me my change. His fingers were dry and cold. I went out fast, like I had suddenly remembered I left something boiling at home. I started the truck, rolled back onto the 2-lane, and tried to pretend I wasn't hearing his words again and again. Don't stop for anyone on that road. A few minutes later, I learned why. Headlights popped up behind me, bright, harsh, too close. The way they came in felt wrong. One heartbeat, they were not there. Next heartbeat, they flooded the mirror. No horn. No flash, no movement to pass. Just heat on my bumper, 2 white eyes trying to burn a hole through my spine. I tapped the brakes, gentle, a little warning. The lights did not blink. I eased onto the thin shoulder, planning to wave them around. As soon as my tires stopped rolling, their lights shut off. Click. Black. I stared in the mirror at nothing. The road behind me looked like a flat wall of dark. I blinked and checked the dash. My clock had jumped ahead 1 hour, not 1 minute. Not 5. A full hour. A full hour. I had been stopped maybe 10 seconds. I looked at my phone. Same time. The truck idled smooth. The world said everything's normal, but my bones said no. I pulled back onto the road, faster now, my breath shallow. The truck's engine voice rose. The trees seemed closer. The turns felt wrong. Too sharp, then too long, like the road couldn't decide what it wanted to be. I watched for signs, any signs. Then I saw a little mile marker, 37. I let out a breath. Numbers meant order. A few minutes later, I saw 37 again. Same spot. Same weeds curled around its post. I said no, out loud, soft like a prayer. I saw 37 a third time and stopped pretending this was all in my head. I held the wheel so hard my fingers went numb. The world narrowed to glass and light in that number. I kept going because I did not know what else to do. Then I saw him. A man stood on the edge of the lane, right foot almost touching the paint. He faced the trees. His arms hung at his sides like he was waiting in a slow line. He did not turn when my lights washed over him. He did not wave. He did not flinch. I steered wide and whispered, "Hey, why, I don't know." As the truck passed, he turned his head very slowly, so slow it made my stomach tilt. I did not see his face clearly. I saw shape, shadow, the pale oval of skin. I saw no hurry in him. He turned like time was a thick syrup, and he was comfortable inside it. The truck rattled hard like I had hit a patch of broken pavement. I looked down. The blacktop was smooth. My teeth clicked together anyway. A sound rose in the cab behind me. A low growl, not a voice. Not a machine. Animal. Ragged, close. I spun around and looked into the dark back of the cab. Nothing there. The growl buzzed in my bones like a bee inside a jar. I snapped the radio on. White noise flooded in, a storm of static. Under it, a whisper pattern, not words I knew, just a rhythm like someone talking to me from a far room, saying the same line again and again. I killed the radio. The silence felt louder. Bang. The whole truck jolted. I checked the side mirror for something in the bed. The mirror showed only the edge of my tailgate and the tunnel of road behind. Another thud, harder, harder. Like a heavy sack dropped from a height, then slid. My heart kicked. I pushed the gas. 80 on a road that was built for 50. The tires drummed. The thuds kept pace with the road's bumps, like whatever was back there was moving with me, using the rhythm of the surface as its own. Then, like a switch, the pounding stopped. I did not trust the quiet. I did not trust anything. The passenger door lock popped up. Sharp. Mechanical. Too clean. I stared at it. The handle twitched twice, an ugly little movement, like fingers testing how much give was in the latch. I heard my own breath go thin. A slip road opened to the right. I swerved onto it, tires crying as I shot down the ramp. The truck wobbled. I fought it straight. I merged hard onto a new road brightened by a few street lamps planted far apart like tired soldiers. The lock snapped down by itself. The mile marker started counting up, neat and steady, 28, 29, 30. The trees pulled back. A billboard appeared for a tire shop I would never visit. The world looked like a world again. I did not stop until I reached a small motel on the north side of Nashville, a city far enough from Devon's new place to feel safe, close enough to finish in the morning. I parked under a camera and a bright light and walked in with my keys still in my palm like a weapon I didn't know how to use. The clerk slid a form at me without looking up from a tiny TV. I signed my name with a hand that did not want to be a hand. I locked the room door. Then I locked it again. I put my bag on the chair and sat on the edge of the bed with my shoes still on and my keys still in my fist. The air conditioner clanked like an old cough. I stared at the door. I did not turn on any more lights. It felt like light might call something over, and dark might hide me. I did not sleep. I practiced breathing. In 4. Hold 2, out 6. I counted to 300 twice. I listened for a growl that did not come. At sunrise, I drove the last hour. I met Devin in the parking lot of his new complex, the kind with square trees and fresh mulch. He grinned like a man who finally owns a dresser. "How'd she run?" he asked, patting the truck's fender. "Fine," I said. "Good." I handed him the keys. He asked if I wanted breakfast, to say thanks. I told him I had a flight home. I hugged him and walked away before he saw the way my hands shook. That should be the end. But fear does not end when you think it should. It rides with you a while, even when you switch cars. I tried to explain it to myself. Maybe the GPS bug was just a mountain glitch. Maybe the hour jump was a battery hiccup. Maybe the mile marker repetition was my tired eyes in a road that doubled back. Maybe the man on the shoulder was a hunter or a farmer, and my mind made him strange. Maybe the banging was boxes in the bed, except the bed was empty. Maybe the lock was loose, except it never did that again. Maybe the warning from the clerk was nothing, except I can still hear the shape of his voice. Don't stop for anyone on that road. I woke up to the rattle of tires and knew we had gone too far. Why did the air feel heavier with every mile we drove? My name is Jonah Reed, and this is the one trip I promised I would never talk about. I'm telling it now like a voice in your ear, so you hear it the way I did, plain, close, and hard to forget. Back then, I was quiet. I grew up near the Appalachian Mountains in a rented house where the roof leaked when it rained. I collected old cassette tapes. I liked to record birds, creeks in the wind. Sounds felt safe to me. People didn't. My uncle, his name was Hank Delaney, was the opposite. Loud laugh, big hands, bigger ideas. He had one rule for road trips: no highways. He said interstates turn every town into an exit and a fast food sign. He liked back roads that curled like string and maps that folded like secrets. We were a week into a drifting summer trip. No plan. Cheap motels, gas station snacks. Whatever the map dared us to try. My cousin Mason rode in the back seat with me. He was older by a year and thought everything was funny until it wasn't. Up front sat Hank's girlfriend Lena, who could read a map like it owed her money. That morning, we left a town called Merrill Ford. The motel had no front desk, just a wall with a slot. Hank knocked, and a hand pushed out a key. No hello. No face. Lena joked it was either very creepy or very efficient. We laughed. Later, that knock would sound like the start of a clock we could not see. We ate at a diner with red booths and a dead jukebox. The fan hummed. Coffee tasted like pennies. Hank chatted up the waitress about scenic roads. She told him about a narrow route by an old quarry that dropped into a mining region. "It's different down there," she said, smiling in a way that looked like a warning dressed as a joke. She didn't explain. Hank's eyes lit up. He folded our map like it was a treasure. Lena raised her eyebrows but didn't argue. That was their dance. He wandered. She navigated. The road narrowed. Trees leaned in. Asphalt cracked like dry skin. We passed porches with no chairs, mailboxes at strange angles, and a rusted school bus down in a ravine, eaten by vines. No cars came the other way. We stopped talking. Even Mason got quiet. The silence felt heavy, like wet wool. "Wait," Lena said, leaning toward the glass. "What's that sign?" It stood in tall weeds, too green, too clean for a road this broken. Briar Hollow, 4 miles. Mason frowned. "I've heard of that." Hank looked in the mirror. "Heard of what?" "Briar Hollow," Mason said. "Didn't it collapse?" "Like the whole town went under." "Made up story," Lena said. But she glanced at the sign again. "Why does a dead town get a new sign?" We rounded a bend and saw people, a line of them, walking single file along both shoulders. No talking, no music, just steps. The first wore a long gray coat and carried a hooked stick. A woman in a floor-length dress followed. Then 3 kids, dressed alike, like uniforms. And then we saw it, a camel. A real camel on a broken mountain road, hump sagging, fur patchy as if winter had chewed it. Hank slowed without meaning to. It was like the road pressed his foot. We pulled to the side. He opened his door. I followed because sometimes fear moves after curiosity, not before it. The air smelled like damp rock and old iron. The tall man stopped but did not look at us. The woman stepped out of the line and walked closer. She spoke. It sounded like English pulled underwater, slow and bent, with the wrong part stretched. Lena called from the truck. Ask if they want water. Hank lifted a hand. Do you need help? Is there a town ahead? What's down there? The woman did not answer. She raised her arm and pointed down the road. The camel made a low grinding sound, like metal twisting, like a beam giving way. It made my stomach drop. All at once, the children turned their heads toward us at the same angle, same speed, same blank look. Not angry, not scared, just watching, like we were a mistake. Back in the truck, Hank said flat. We obeyed. The doors shut. The windows fogged from the inside as if something breathed out behind our necks. I wiped a circle with my sleeve. The road was empty. No people. No camel, no footprints. Just broken pavement and trees pressing close. Hank cranked the wheel and clawed a U-turn that scraped gravel. He drove back the way we came, faster now. We passed the same diner, only the sign was gone. No cars, lights off. Windows boarded from the inside like someone tried to keep something in, not out. No one said a word. At last, we hit a wide state route with bright signs and traffic. We stopped at the first gas station. Hank asked the cashier, a tired man with a pencil behind his ear, "You ever hear Briar Hollow?" The man froze just a second. "Not in a long time," he said. There was a town, mine collapse. 1930s, no survivors. That road doesn't go anywhere now. He looked like he wanted to say more. He didn't. We didn't talk about it. Hank took highways after that. No more detours, no more waitress tips. We tried to be normal again, but the mountains weren't done with us. I carried a little tape recorder. I had used it that afternoon to capture the forest. Leaves, a creek, a woodpecker. Later at the gas station, I played it back, hoping for calm. For 20 seconds, it was just wind and birds. Then a voice slid under the sound, soft and close, like it leaned right to my ear. Turn back. I rewound. Again, turn back. It wasn't any of us. It wasn't radio. It wasn't the diner. It was there. That night, in a town called Pine Laurel, we checked into a long, low motel with buzzing letters. I went outside and recorded the night. Crickets, a far dog, quiet wheels on a far road. Back in the room, I pressed play. The same soft voice whispered under the chirps, "Turn back." Then, almost too faint to catch, "You've passed it." I didn't wake anyone. I stared at the ceiling and counted to 100, then to 1,000. At some point, I slept. Morning came gray and low. Clouds hung like a ceiling. Hank said we'd head toward Asheville and grab a bigger road. We loaded up. He turned the key. The engine started, and then I heard it, a second heartbeat in the truck. Soft at first, thump. Then ours. Then again, thump. It wasn't my pulse. It wasn't the engine knock. It was new. It was patient. We drove. Each hour, the second heartbeat grew louder. When Hank pressed the gas, it quickened. When he braked, it slowed. Mason touched the dash, then flinched like he had touched a hot stove. No one said the words. We didn't have words. Out along the road, animals stood facing the same way. A fox on a stump, a deer at the ditch, a raccoon mid-step, all turned north. Even cows in a field pointed their noses the same direction, silent and still, like needles on a compass. My skin prickled. Nature had picked a side. We were not on it. We reached a crossroads without names. In the grass stood another new, too-clean sign, Briar Hollow, 3 miles. We had not taken that turn. The distance had still dropped. The second heartbeat sounded like it lived in the steering column now. Hank put the truck in park. The heartbeat kept going. Slower, waiting. He cut the engine. It kept going. "We're not going there," Lena said very softly. "We are not," Hank said. He turned us around. While the nose swung, I saw the trees on my side ripple with hollows. Not shadows, but empty shapes moving through leaves that did not move. I looked away. I knew not to write a name on a thing you can't escape. We found a road that led under tall power lines. We passed a church with boarded windows and a bell sunk in grass. Someone had carved into the door with a pocket knife, "Keep what you find." What did that mean? My mouth tasted like a coin. We crested a hill. Far off, a town sat in a bowl of hills. I saw a water tower, ash veil. Relief washed through me like warm air. We dropped into the town. Then we saw the streets. Plywood covered every window. Curtains were closed at noon. A sheriff's car sat with the driver's door open, hat on the seat, keys gone. At the crossroads, the light hung dead. Prints in the dust all faced north. We didn't stop. We rolled on. The second heartbeat turned into a steady drum under our seats. It didn't sound angry. It sounded certain. Past town, the road widened. Old signs, sun-bleached and honest, started to appear. We reached a ramp for a big state highway. Hank did what he had sworn never to do. He took it, fast. Lanes opened like a river. Trucks roared. Billboards shouted. The world felt normal again. The second heartbeat slowed. It faded to a soft thump. Not gone, just resting. The radio, dead all week, crackled to life. A weather report, a call-in show, a song about summer love. Then, like a thread under fabric, the soft voice came again. Turn back. I switched the radio off. I could still hear it in my head. We pulled into a rest area. Kids laughed by vending machines. Dogs sniffed the grass. A woman wiped ketchup from her child's cheek. Everything was normal, and it hurt because of how much I had missed it. Hank asked a man by the soda machine, "You ever hear of Briar Hollow?" The man squinted. "My granddad told stories." Mine collapsed. Nobody made it out. "Folks say the ground there remembers." He shrugged, like he just told us about rain. We left. We stayed on highways after that. Bright lines, wide lanes, gas stations with ugly lights. We drove until the mountains softened into long hills. At a bridge crossing a slow river, I played my tape one last time. Turn back. Then silence, like the voice had finally decided we were not going to listen. We never found that little road again. I wish I could give you clean answers. I can't. I can give you what I still hear sometimes when night is quiet. The faint beat I tell myself is the house settling. I can give you what I know. I recorded the forest, and on playback a voice said, "Turn back." Every animal faced north, and a second heartbeat rode with us, louder each hour, patient as stone. I knew something was wrong the moment the night stopped feeling like night. My name is Ethan Cole, and before I take you into the strangest road trip of my life, let me tell you this. I've always been the kind of guy who laughs at ghost stories. I grew up in small towns, spent summers camping in the woods, walking lonely country roads, and never once felt afraid of the dark. My friends knew me as the calm one, the one who never panicked when weird things happened. But that night, somewhere deep in the Appalachian mountains, I learned what it meant to feel completely powerless. It started simple enough. My two closest friends, Harper and Dylan, had convinced me we didn't need a motel after the concert. We'd just finished watching our favorite band play in Charlotte, North Carolina, and the adrenaline was still buzzing in our veins. We were young, awake, and full of snacks. The plan was easy: rotate drivers, crank up the playlist, and get back to Ohio before the sun came up. At first, it was perfect. The city lights faded, replaced by long stretches of highway. We laughed at dumb jokes, sang along to the songs blasting through the speakers, and tried to count how many billboards we passed before the next exit. For a while, it was freedom in its purest form. But once we crossed into the Appalachian back roads, something shifted. The highways grew emptier. The trees seemed to lean closer, branches casting shadows like long arms reaching for the car. No houses, no passing cars. Not even a glow of a distant porch light. just endless road and the black curtain of forest pressing in on both sides. At first, we didn't notice. We were still caught in the glow of the night. But every so often, one of us checked the clock, and that's when the unease began. It was always later than we expected. We'd swear only 15 minutes had passed, but the dashboard clock said it had been nearly an hour. I started feeling like the road itself was stretching, adding miles while we weren't looking. Around midnight, we spotted a gas station just off a bend in the road. A single pump stood under a buzzing fluorescent light that flickered like a trapped insect. The place looked forgotten, like no one had touched it since the 1970s. Dylan stayed in the car scrolling through his phone. I got out to pump gas. Harper went inside for snacks. She didn't come out right away. When she finally stepped outside, she looked off, not panicked, just distant. She held a soda and a bag of chips, staring at them like she didn't remember buying them. When we got back on the road, she spoke in a low voice. "The guy at the counter never looked at me," she said. "He just stared behind me the whole time. Didn't say a word, didn't even blink. We joked about it." Dylan laughed and said maybe ghosts worked night shifts. I said something dumb about animatronic cashiers. But none of us opened the snacks she bought. Not long after, I noticed headlights in the rearview mirror. They were faint, dipping in and out of sight behind the hills of the road. At first, I thought it was just another late-night driver. But as the miles stretched on, I realized something strange. The headlights never got closer. It didn't matter if I sped up or slowed down. They stayed the exact same distance, not close enough to pass, not far enough to disappear. When I pointed it out, Dylan leaned forward, squinting. "Maybe they're pacing us," he said. But Harper shook her head, arms crossed tight. "It doesn't feel like that," she whispered. She didn't say what it did feel like. When we pulled over to switch drivers an hour later, those lights were still there. Dylan took the wheel. That's when the GPS started to lose its mind. First, it froze. Then it jumped ahead, showing we were miles further than we actually were. Next, it rerouted us to roads that didn't exist, roads not even on the paper map Dylan had in the glove box. The voice on the GPS kept repeating the same words: "Turn left, turn left." Turn left, flat tone, no urgency. Just an endless loop. Harper reached over and shut it off without hesitation. "It's not helping," she muttered. That's when the road itself began to change. The pavement looked older. The painted lines were almost gone. The signs we passed were strange, faded green markers for towns we'd never heard of. Some just listed numbers or letters: Exit A, Route 0. One sign just said, "Return." Every mile marker had been spray-painted black. But if you looked closely, you could still make out the ghost of the numbers underneath. The trees pressed in tighter. Branches scraped the roof. The air inside the car grew heavy, like the cabin was filling with invisible water. It pressed against my chest with every breath. Sometime after 2 a.m., the car made a soft clicking noise. It sped up and slowed down with the tires. Dylan pulled over to check it. The second we stepped outside, the stillness hit us. No insects, no wind. No sound at all except the cooling engine and our own breathing. Then I looked down the road. The headlights were closer now, much closer. And for the first time, I saw them clearly. There was no car. Just two lights hanging above the road, the right distance apart, but no outline, no metal, no frame, nothing. Harper grabbed my arm, voice trembling. "We're getting back in the car." We didn't argue. Dylan didn't even check the tires, he just drove. Faster than we should have. For a while, I kept looking back, watching the lights. Then, without warning, they vanished. No fade. No turn, just gone. We thought it was over. We thought we'd escaped. But we were wrong. Half an hour later, we spotted a small diner glowing at the side of the road. We hadn't eaten since the concert, so we pulled in. Inside, it was almost empty, just one man at the counter. He looked up as we walked in, and his lips stretched into a smile that didn't touch his eyes. "You three look tired," he said. "Let me get a picture, for memory." Before I could say no, he snapped a photo with an old Polaroid camera. Handed it to Harper as the film developed. We sat down, ordered coffee, but none of us touched it. The man kept glancing our way, that same stiff smile frozen on his face. When we left, Harper shoved the photo in her pocket. Hours later, when we stopped at another gas station, she froze. On a corkboard covered in missing person flyers, the photo was pinned. Our photo, the one the man had taken. By the time we made it back on the highway, none of us spoke. We just wanted to get home. But the silence grew heavier when I glanced at the dashboard. The odometer showed we'd traveled hundreds of miles more than we actually had. We hadn't gone that far. It was impossible. And yet, the numbers didn't lie. Then, out of nowhere, a real interstate sign appeared. Bright, clean green, I-75 North, Lexington. Dylan didn't hesitate. He swerved onto the ramp like it was our last chance. Suddenly, the road looked normal again. Painted lines, familiar signs, trees stepping back. The GPS came back online, showing a normal route. We were back. None of us spoke for the rest of the drive. We reached home just after sunrise. Each of us went straight inside and slept, not even saying goodbye. The next afternoon, Dylan texted me. He'd filled the tank before we left the concert. We should have had enough to get home. But when we finally pulled into our driveways, the tank was nearly empty. The GPS history showed we'd traveled hundreds of extra miles on roads that didn't exist. When we tried retracing the route later, nothing matched. No strange towns, no gravel path, no diner, not even the gas station with the flickering light. It was as if none of it had ever been there. That was years ago, and I've been on plenty of road trips since. Different states, different highways. But if the route even hints at cutting through the Appalachian back roads after dark, I don't go, because I know what waits out there. And I don't think it's finished with us yet.